Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion with WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, historians, and editorial board. We first start with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and then give you the latest USC Trojans football news. Let's first meet this week's panelists. Marc Kulkin, WeAreSC columnist who writes the Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season football and basketball practice reports. Chris Arledge, former William Jewell College defensive back and team captain, and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular column Musings with Arledge, and is a graduate of the USC Law School. Kevin Bruce, former USC first-team all-conference linebacker and team captain for the 1975 Trojans, team member of the 72 national champions, and a starter on the 1974 Trojans national champions, and a WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular Defensively and Offensively Speaking after every USC game. And Greg Katz, that's me, your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays, The Obvious and Not So Obvious, and IMHO Sundays, and am an active member of the Football Writers Association of America. Before we kick off this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, here's the latest football news as of today's Monday afternoon's taping. On Saturday night, the Trojans avenged last season's 45-27 loss to the Oregon State Beavers in the Coliseum with a pulsating last-minute 17-14 victory over the previously undefeated Beavers in Corvallis. Trojans are now 4-0, 2-0 in Pac-12 Conference play, and have risen to number 6 in the country. They now begin a 2-week Coliseum homestand by first hosting this Saturday night the reeling Arizona State Sun Devils, and the following week, the Washington State Cougars. This Saturday night's game against ASU kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time and will be nationally televised by ESPN. And it was also announced on Monday that the kickoff time for the home game in the Coliseum with Washington State on Saturday, October 8th, will be 4:30 p.m. Pacific time and will be televised on Fox. Friends, a reminder, WeAreSC's Inside the Trojans Huddle greatly appreciates your viewer and listenership, and we encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the red subscriber and like buttons. It's greatly valued, and it is free. And we encourage you to check out WeAreSC.com, become a valued premium member of the best football and athletic news source around. So with that in mind, let's kick this baby off. We first begin with the first half kickoff with this question, panel. After Saturday night's pulsating fourth quarter comeback at Oregon State, what did we learn about the 2022 Trojans, and what do we still do not know for the future? Marc Kulkin, what did you learn?
I learned that this team is going to find a way to win. If you want to quote their head coach, we learned that they have guts, they have toughness. That's all the cliches you want to get out of the way. They won the old-fashioned way. I'm sure Kevin appreciated the way the game turned out. It was just played in a phone booth. Everybody was socking each other in the mouth. USC made fewer mistakes than Oregon State. And in the end, great players make plays on offense, and they got the job done.
And what do you still don't know about this team?
Can they maintain that level? Especially if you start getting injured at certain positions, can they maintain that level?
Okay, Kevin Bruce, what did you learn about the 22 Trojans, and what do we still don't know about them?
Yeah, what was confirmed is something that I've been pretty clear about in my writing and in conversations with others, is that this defense is started off with the opportunity to be pretty darn good to very good, and they showed it. Very talented, great athleticism, being plus 14, in turnovers is crazy. Now, some of that, thankfully, the offense has not turned the ball over. Fortunately, they're pretty good at recovering their own fumbles. I don't mean that as a, Well, no, I mean exactly what I just said. I mean, they're good at recovering their own fumbles, 4 of them in the last game, 1 of them on the 1 yard line, our 1 yard line, just to be clear. So, but hey, good teams make those things happen. You can't give it away, and they didn't. And so we learned the team has a lot of fight in it. The team is very skilled, very good in certain things. We also learned that our quarterback is going to need some work. And as is the offense, and the coaching staff is going to have to figure out how to play against that kind of a defense, which, without getting too far into the weeds here, that was very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to the BYU defense from a few years ago when it shut down Keaton Slovis. And we used a lot of cover 8 and putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback position and into the pocket. This was not a cover 8 situation. It's a different setup, but it very much a similar approach, which was take away the easy throws, put pressure on the quarterback. Now let's just see what we can squeeze out of it. Our offense decided we're going to run the ball because they only got 5, 6 guys in the box, and good decisions all the way around. It was just like it was a slugfest. So whoever's still standing at the end who can make the big play is going to win the game, and that's exactly what happened.
And what do you think we don't know?
What we don't know is how Caleb Williams is going to respond. 1, 2, someone just needs to tell him, get the first down. Quit dancing around the sticks. Just get the first down. Don't put your head down and get killed. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is get the first down, then go out of bounds.
All right, Chris Arledge, what did you learn about the win at Oregon State about this team, and what do you still not know about this team?
Well, we learned that this team can handle adversity. I mean, that was the talk after the first 3 games. At some point they're going to struggle, probably on the road. Not a huge surprise it was at Oregon State, although I thought they would handle them easier than they did. But we know what it's been like for USC teams to play at that place over the years. And a lot of our best teams with our very best coach struggled. So we knew we were going to run into a situation like that. What we didn't know is whether or not the team would be able to deal with that adversity and overcome it. They did, barely, but barely is all it's required. We learned that the defense is a work in progress, but that they're getting better. And the truth is, if they play like that most weeks, even without all 4 turnovers, if they just play like that most weeks we're not going to have a hard time. What do we still not know? We don't know what USC is going to do when people aren't going to give them man coverage, when they're not going to give them easy throws, and Caleb Williams is going to have to read the defense and get rid of the ball on time. We don't know what they're going to do. That was a strategy against him last year as a freshman in the Big 12. He had some rough games as a result, and he had another one here. Look, teams aren't going to play USC. They're not going to play the USC wideouts man on man. They can't. Nobody can cover those guys. I don't care who it is. And when you're in man defense, that poses problems when Caleb breaks contain or sees a gap, because you got a bunch of secondary guys with their backs turned to the quarterback, and you have a 4-4 guy running down the field. So we're going to see a lot of what we saw last night or Saturday night. And the offensive line answered the bell on the running side. They didn't protect particularly well, and Caleb Williams didn't handle that particularly well. And he had happy feet, and he didn't settle in and make his throws. He didn't get rid of the ball on time. And, this is an immensely talented kid who's going to have to figure out how to deal with that style of play, because he's going to see it a bunch over the next 8 weeks.
And Chris, what don't we really not know?
Well, that's what we don't know. We don't know whether Caleb Williams and the coaching staff are going to be able to figure that out. We don't know whether the coaching staff is going to be able to get the play in on time, because we struggled with that a little bit the other day.
Good, excellent point. Excellent.
So, the offense, for the first time all year, you look at the offense and say, geez, that wasn't great. Well, everybody who's watching film is going to try to employ that same strategy. And I don't know, most of the teams on the schedule won't be as good as Oregon State was defensively, but some of them will. And we don't know whether USC is going to be able to adjust, but they've got 3 weeks to figure it out.
All right, I'll keep my comments brief because most of you guys have covered a lot of it, but I thought they showed grit, character, all the ingredients of a team that could win the championship. We found out that the offense was explosive the first 3 games, but it is certainly not an offense that cannot be stopped. We learned that a defense, and Mark has hit on this, is better than maybe we thought, or maybe they just rose to the occasion. Maybe they got up for it and were coachable and whatever you want the intangibles. What we don't know is how do they build upon this? Because like Chris mentioned, other coaches are going to watch this film, especially defensively. The management of getting the plays in, and I'll talk about this later, was really making it difficult on Caleb Williams, who also made the game difficult for himself, but we'll talk about that later. But good stuff, guys. Let's move on. A brief overall assessment of last night's game. Let's begin with an overall grade for the offense. Simply just give me a grade, and then we'll get into specifics. Mark, what was your grade for the offense?
I want to be gratuitous again. And that's only because of that last drive and the running game was working.
Okay, I think you cut out there for a second. I didn't hear it. What grade did you give them? I'm sorry.
A C.
Okay.
Did anybody else hear me? Or was it just Greg?
No, nobody heard you.
Oh, okay. Gave them a C basically because of their last drive, and the running game was working when they stuck with it.
Okay, Kev, what did you grade? Would you give the overall offense?
Kevin's gone.
Kevin has left the building.
In the locker room.
Kevin's unhappy. He's unhappy with the state of this program.
I guess he's unsteady. I hope it's not going to be a problem.
He's coming back.
All right, Kevin is. This happens, you know. This is how we adjust. It's like a football game. You have to.
We're overcoming adversity, Greg.
Yeah, and you know what? We don't get a TV timeout here. Okay, Kevin, you have 2 timeouts. Yeah. Just to let you know.
Oh, good. I should get at least 1 play in then.
Okay, so Kevin, what grade did you give the offense overall?
Yeah, C-.
C-. Okay, Christopher.
Yeah, I'll go with the C- also.
And I will go with a C. So let's get into specifics and why you did what you did and what you thought. So let's start off with, and we'll go in this order, Mark, Kevin, Chris, and myself. But Mark, give us your grades for quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, and offensive line, and a brief explanation if you'd like.
Yeah, quarterback, I'm going C-. He had a rough going of it. You know, Kevin touched on it. When you get, you know, when you do have to run for the sticks, when you get to the sticks, go out of bounds. He actually gave up a first down 1 time, and he probably gave it up twice, but the refs gave it to him the other time. I don't know if it was the crown of the field, but all of his throws, for the most part, I mean, he only completed 44% of them. Were either, you know, short or low. So I don't know if the field played a part of it, and whether the call was coming in late from the sideline or he was just making a decision. Timeouts in the first quarter just should never happen because of communication between quarterback and sideline. Running backs, I'm giving them a solid B. Again, when they stuck with the running game, I thought they performed well. Yeah, you never want to see them, you know, drop the ball at your own goal line. We were lucky there. Wide receivers, tight ends, I'll give them a C. You have that great catch by Jordan. I don't know. Were they open underneath and Jordan and Caleb just kept wanting to go to his first read? It was hard to tell because you don't get a lot to see on the TV. And then as far as offensive line, I'll go because again, they were solid with their run game. I thought they were pretty decent action considering they're dealing with some injuries there. And you know, when you have a mobile quarterback back there who is struggling, I think the domino effect took over and everybody might have panicked a little bit. So those are my grades and brief comments to go with them.
Thank you. All right, Kevin, Bruce, grades for quarterback, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, and offensive line.
Look, I've been hitting the head a lot. I can't remember all that. But with respect to the quarterback, look, it was a rough day. He was throwing the ball onto guys into their feet 10 yards away. And that's not the crown of the field causing that issue. That's just a guy that's panicked. And it's just, you got to calm him down, slow him down, see the field, which is also part of the can't get the play in because he's trying to fit, the perfect audible adjustment. Let's call it adjustments, not really audible in those situations. And it's taking too dang long. Now, maybe there's something coming in from the sidelines too late. I don't think so, actually. I think it's on Caleb. And maybe he's watching Lincoln with their hand signals or something. I mean, I couldn't tell. I couldn't get enough data to give you an answer on that.
What grade did you give Caleb? What letter?
A letter as a D.
A D. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Running backs.
Running back. Travis is always going to be an A in my book. I don't care. I just love the guy. And everybody else from a running back situation didn't do much. No pass pro. Nothing extraordinary.
And wide receiver, tight ends.
Wide receivers need a lot of work. And they're good. I mean, they're super talented, gifted. All that is true. You got to get open, guys. Come on. Against a zone. That was a zone out there.
And the grade you gave the wide receivers?
Except for one catch, I give them a D, but that pushes up the curve, right? So that's a C minus.
Okay. And your offensive line grade?
Yeah, the offensive line, that's an interesting one because they did not pass protect worth a hoot. And the running backs, which is, again, problematic, didn't help either. So Caleb was under a lot of pressure. And the way Oregon State set up their defense was USC is going to have to figure it out. Let's just put it that way. And I think Chris said that earlier. So what am I missing here? Somebody needs a grade, right?
You gave them a grade.
Am I good? Have I fulfilled my obligations with respect to grades?
You gave them what grade did you give them? You gave them a C minus, or what was it that you gave them?
One very good. I remember
that. Okay, let's go on to Chris. Chris, what are your 4 grades?
I'm going to give Caleb Williams a C minus. The only reason I'm going to give him a C minus for 2 reasons, because it could have been much worse than that. Look, he really struggled the other night, and he seemed confused and frustrated all night. He wasn't setting his feet, so even the simple throws, as Kevin pointed out, were a struggle for him. I mean, it was hard. The only reason that I'm not going to give him as low a grade as Kevin did is because, number one, after all of that, he found a way to win the game when he needed to, and he threw a laser into the corner to do it. And number 2, you think about the number of sacks that he avoided just because he is an unbelievable athlete. He had guys come through 3-4 different times and just made them miss. He picked up first downs, or in some cases near first downs, as we've already pointed out, with his feet in ways that no USC quarterback I've ever seen would be able to. And so he is a special talent who had just a horrific night. And I don't know how much to blame him. I actually think he was looking to the sideline, and Lincoln Riley wanted to make adjustments based on Oregon State's late adjustments, I think.
Okay.
I also think that the offensive staff needed to simplify things and make it easier for him, needed to get the ball out quickly. And we just didn't do it. We insisted on holding the ball and having guys run deep routes and crossing routes and things that take time. And I think that was a coaching mistake too. So I'm going to give him a C minus, probably generous. Running backs, also a C minus. Travis Dye ran the ball pretty well. The other 2 guys didn't do anything running the ball. Nobody protected it very well. And I can only give Travis Dye so high a grade when he fumbled the ball at his own 1-yard line, which would have ended the game. You can't drop that ball. You can't. I know he got it back. You can't drop that ball, and he knows that. So I'm going to give those guys a C-. Wide receivers, it's tough to tell. Watching on TV because you don't get to see what's going on downfield. So I spent most of the night frustrated because I couldn't tell whether Caleb is missing, that there are guys open downfield, or whether these guys just can't get open. And I just don't know the answer. So I'm gonna go with incomplete because I just don't know what was going on down there. You can't see it on television. Very seldom would they give us a replay worth anything. It's Pac-12 network. Offensive line, I'm going to give a B-, because I like to see them gut it out in the run game. That Oregon State team is tough, right? Those guys are bring a lunch pail, go to work for 8 hours, tough guys. And the offensive line muscled them around. They didn't dominate them, but they muscled them around pretty good in the run game. And we didn't have a ton of false starts, which we could have had under those circumstances where they have, additional 50 speakers behind the bench blaring noise, which is outrageous. And under those circumstances, you would expect 5, 6, 7 false starts are a possibility, especially when the game gets tight. And we didn't see that. So I'm going to give them that B-, but the pass protection just got to get better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give quarterback a C-. I think Caleb had a lot of issues. Some of it was his own. I don't think, I believe the crown of the field did make a difference at the start of the game. He doesn't play on a crown field. The Coliseum is basically a flat surface. Crown of the field is almost like a pitcher's mound. When they talk about running downhill, that's what they're talking about. If you got a crown in the field, I think it got to him a little bit. I thought the communication by Lincoln Riley, well, I'm going to tell it like it is. I thought it was pathetic. They run the clock down to 1 second. Caleb is so distracted trying to find out what the play is going to be. And then you got Oregon State that changes defense on the snap. I think he just got completely, and I say I'm talking about Caleb Williams, got completely frustrated and bamboozled. There was I thought some very generous no delay of game calls on it. I think also the fact that Caleb's got a lot of pressure on him. Generally you have to slay the dragon to become the hero. Already Caleb's on television. Some of you can say, oh, come on now. But no, he's you see him on national commercials. What has he won? I'm not saying he's not good. I think he's really good, but there's a lot of pressure on him. Will this affect his Heisman Trophy attention? We'll talk about that later. But I thought he had a difficult thing. I think they could get the plays into him a little bit sooner, so he's not in a panic. And definitely, you saw him on the bench. He was getting, and I thought it was a good thing that Lincoln Riley was really giving him a pep talk. I think in the end, I think Caleb, from my perspective, stopped worrying about Caleb's performance and how it looked and everything's going bad. I think when he took that big hit on the last drive where they pushed him over for the first down, I think he concentrated more on winning the game than how he was performing. And it was like someone turned the switch on, and good for him. Running back, I gave him a B. I'm like Kevin. I like Travis Dye. He's a football player. He's a stud. I thought that, unfortunately, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Rayleigh Brown when the offense is having trouble. I didn't see any reverses or fly sweeps, nothing. But overall, I give him a B. Wide receivers grade was a C. If you leave out the catch at the end, what did they do? I think the secondary was very good for Oregon State. Some of those guys I think are going to be in the NFL. And how did they adjust? I can't believe that Addison didn't have a catch in the first half. There's something wrong on that. Somebody's missing the train. Offensive line, I gave him a C+. I think that Caleb helped the offensive line out because of his Houdini work and, in sidestepping or feeling the rush. I thought they statistically did pretty good on the ground, but, it's any other quarterback would have been hammered probably 5 or 6 times. So with that, let's move on to the overall defense. Please give me an overall letter grade for the defense. Any brief comments? Mark, letter grade, go for it.
A.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah, I had a B plus, but I wouldn't argue with an A either. Frankly, they played a great game.
Chris?
A minus.
And I'm going to give him an A minus as well. So good night for the defense. How good was it? Let's talk about it a little bit. Defensive line, rush ends, linebackers, secondary, in that order. That's 3 grades. So Marc, how did you see those 3 areas?
Yeah, you know, that defensive line, the rush end, on the whole, I mean, they played a solid game. I'll give them a B. They made plays when they had to. But again, it's still not the best unit on the defense, I guess is the nice way of putting it. The linebackers I thought played pretty well, especially in space. Look, Eric Gentry is making that group really, really good. When you affect passing lanes just because of your length, that adds a whole nother dimension. I mean, to not only have your own interception, but that tip that led to the game-winning interception. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the way that the group played on Saturday. As far as the secondary, I thought they did pretty well. I mean, again, you have 4 interceptions as a team. 3 of them came in from the secondary. How do you knock them down? And again, you held Oregon State to 58% completion rate from their quarterbacks. I'll give them a B.
Okay, Mr. Defense, El Capitan, Kevin Bruce.
Yeah, I had the overall. Well, we already did the overall grade, but as far as the defensive line goes, it's a mixed bag. But I'll round that up. You know, I had a B plus for those guys. They were playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage a fair amount. I'll give them credit for that, and that was helpful. That slowed down Oregon State. What we didn't see from anybody was putting a lot of pressure on Oregon State's quarterback, and there was a couple in your face moments. The fact that he threw 4 interceptions is pretty interesting. If he just held the ball a little longer, he probably wouldn't have thrown a couple picks. But yeah, I guess he could hear some footsteps. So if I was to tell him what to work on, that's what I'd tell him to go work on. But you know, too bad. Game's over. Go do it on your own. With respect to the rush ends and related, we really didn't run that kind of a defense against Oregon State, where we were putting the pressure off the perimeter. I was a little surprised about some of that, not so much the perimeter, but we didn't see a lot of slanting and stunting. Slanting meaning sliding to a particular direction. Stunting generally meaning that there's one guy crossing over another, one defensive player crossing behind another to confuse the offensive line. And they did stunt. They did slant and run some twists, and some of that was successful. We're just going to have to get a little bit better. But I saw a quicker version of our defensive line, so I think there's a nucleus there that we can work with. Is my point. And I've always thought Eric Gentry was a game changer. Go back and look at all my articles and the conversations I've had. I think the guy's a game changer. He's going to have to be, because we're going to need him for tight end control against Utah and later on against Notre Dame.
And so you gave the linebackers a overall grade of?
No, I gave Eric Gentry an A.
Eric Gentry, okay.
I just want to be real clear here. Shane Lee, good job, solid, rock solid. Where are we supposed to be? Some clown on Pac-12 said, "Oh well, he can't keep up with the running back." Really? Wow, there's insightful commentary for you. The guy's 250 pounds. What do you expect? Sorry, but I am so glad we're not going to be tortured with Pac-12 network very much longer.
And what did you give the secondary? What grade?
Secondary now, to me, that was the more interesting of the groups, because they were moving around and playing a kind of a soft man/man press zone thing. And I will tell you that's not going to cut it against a better team with better quarterbacks, especially a kid at Utah. But you know what? They've got some serious athleticism and talent. So you know what? That's a teachable crowd. Yeah, okay. Let's just teach them up, coach them up, get them on the field. Now let's just see what happens.
Chris?
All right. That's a B+.
Okay, well done. All right, Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to give the defensive line and the rush ends a B. I thought that they played the run better than they had in previous weeks against a better running team than we'd seen in previous weeks. That Oregon State offensive line is pretty darn good. They have a lot of experience. They're well coached. That's a good offensive line. We saw what they did to USC last year. It was just an absolute beatdown. And they played those guys pretty well. Not a lot of big. There was a 22-yard touchdown run at the end, but there weren't a lot of big runs. And I think I saw that about 1/3 of the runs were for 0 yards or less, which is pretty good. So I think against the run, they were as good as we can expect. Oregon State still ran the ball. They still had 150-something yards rushing and about 5 yards a carry. But they weren't bad, and they were better than they had been in the past. Against the pass, they had, they weren't hitting the quarterback, and they got in his face a couple of times. They may have forced some early throws that led to picks, but they were not beating guys in their pass rush. And I don't think it's because they were just trying to stay in their lanes, because that Oregon State quarterback is not exactly Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray. That guy wasn't going to run 80 yards on you. So I think the pass rush left a little bit to be desired. Linebackers, I'm going to give the linebackers an A-. Eric Gentry is a superstar. We've already talked about it. So athletic, so long, and while he's not exactly Scott Ross when it comes to plugging filling the run game. He does pretty good for a guy who looks like he's a small forward. And Shane Lee was active. He had a bunch of tackles and I thought played pretty well. I don't think there's much behind those two guys right now. They really need to develop some depth. There other guys play. Goforth gets in there quite a bit, but there's a pretty significant drop off from those two to everybody else. Secondary, look, when the opposing quarterback completes less than 60% of his passes, throws for 5.8 yards per attempt, throws no touchdowns and 4 picks, the secondary gets an A. Now, maybe that's just because I was a secondary guy, but it's hard to beat those numbers. They will play against better quarterbacks. They will play against better receiving corps, but those guys did what they needed to do and held that Oregon State passing game in check. So I'm going to give them an A.
Okay, and I'll wrap this up by saying I'll give the defensive line rush ends a B+. They pressured Chance Nolan enough that it was either they were getting in his face enough that he got rid of the ball, but he was definitely panicked. And you can give credit to Solomon Byrd on that. You can give credit to Thule on that. I thought it was their best effort, so I gave them a B+. Linebackers, I gave them an A. I think that Gentry is an absolute freak. I can't wait till they play Utah, because I know Utah will run right at his 215 pounds or 220, whatever he's carrying, but it doesn't seem to have made a difference. And I did like Shane Lee. He was a real run stuffer, got a lot of tackles. So I think both of those guys did an excellent job. And as far as the secondary, they had 4 interceptions at the right place, right time, tip passes. I don't care. I gave them an A-. So I think we could all agree that the defense rose to the occasion. And the bottom line is, and Culkin has mentioned this before, and I think it's worth noting, it's really about numbers on the scoreboard, that they only had 14 points. And what were they averaging? 45 to 50 points a game on offense. And I know they played some cupcakes, but, that's still pretty impressive numbers. So let's move to special teams. Just give me an overall letter grade, brief comment. We don't need to go specifics on it. So, Mark, overall letter grade and any brief comments you want on this, on the special teams?
Yeah, let's just go C-, and they need to get a dedicated special teams coach. I can look past the missed field goal. I'm starting to get a little concerned now that they're having some issues just getting the kickoff through the end zone. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
All right, Kev.
Yeah, C-, D+ if there is such a thing. Honestly, we're giving away yards, we're giving away field position. We have to do better than this. One kickoff out of bounds, a missed field goal, kickoff coverage, which is woeful. We can't get a kickoff return. Other than that, it's beautiful. So, look, this is an opportunity, and I mean it that way. I don't mean that it's all negative. It's not. It just we have enough good athletes that we can put good players into the special team groupings and get a better outcome. So, I think, Mark, to your point, we have to coach these guys and get the expectations right on what we want to get done here. So, anyway,
I actually thought their kickoff coverage was better in this game, but I was talking more to the fact that we're not getting any type of kick return. And then on the punt coverage, I'll take the ball being down at the 3 every single time. They had a chance of down at the 1, and the players are kind of pointing to each other like, hey, I'm standing right here. Pay attention. So that's all. Sorry, Chris, your point.
No. Look, I'm going to give the special teams a C-. Anytime you miss a short field goal in a close game, that's a problem. I'm not pushing the panic button on the field goal team yet, but that's 2 short misses in 4 games, and so it's something to keep an eye on. Downing a punt inside the 5 in a game like that when field position matters is huge. The kickoff unit was better. Goforth blew a guy up around the 15-yard line, and we had another and at the end of the game we had another great hit on the kickoff, well inside the 20, which is of course ruined by the fact that we didn't throw the guy on the ground to get a 15-yard flag. Not sure I agree with the flag, but it was probably unnecessary. The kickoff return unit is a freaking disaster. I mean, we haven't fumbled one yet, so we got that going for us. But we're not a threat to do anything. We should start fair catching it and just taking it to 25. I mean, they have that new rule. Even if you're at the 3-yard line, you can fair catch it and take it at the 25. Let's start doing that, because I'm tired of starting drives at the 16-yard line. And if they can't figure that out, let's just take it at the 25. And we may need to figure it out by making some personnel changes, because it's a nightmare right now. So very displeased with that unit. I was happy, though, to see that the kickoff unit covered kicks better. Sadly, there weren't many kickoffs this week. I guess there were 4. And on 2 of the 4, we had big hits around the 15-yard line. That's not terrible.
All right. Well, special teams, sometimes the beauty in the eyes of the beholder. I gave them actually a B- because I saw improvement on some of the coverage teams. They did down the ball in some good critical areas. I too am concerned about missing short field goals, but then again, as I said on our after the first game, I was concerned about experience factor in field goal kicking. But okay, so he missed the first one, and then Lynch made the second one. So you're good with the bad. But what happens if they have to go like 3 or 4 field goals? The punting looked a little bit improved to me, but there's really nothing on kickoff returns. It's just kind of like for all the athletes, they can't put somebody back there to return it. And I agree with Chris. Look, just take a touchback and start off with the 25 or whatever. So, you have to wonder what's going to happen when they face a team that prides itself on special teams like Utah does,
right?
And how that plays out. And it could be something that could be a deciding factor. So with that, that's a long first quarter, but quality answers, guys. All right, let's take a look at this Saturday when the Trojans play Arizona State. Okay, we begin with a look at really a program that's sinking by the moment. Arizona State Sun Devils 0-1 in the Pac-12, 1-3 overall. Head coach Herm Edwards has been fired. The Devils are now being guided by interim head coach Sean Aguano. ASU, he's the former ASU running back. On Saturday, ASU was dominated by number 13 Utah, 34-13 in Tempe. Personnel-wise, ASU returns just 7 starters, 3 on offense, 3 on defense, along with his punter. The Sun Devils are led by quarterback Emory Jones, a Florida Gators transfer on offense. Now on defense, they still have a good one in senior linebacker Merlin Robertson. Trojans opened a 23.5-point favorite to defeat Arizona State in the Coliseum. The Utah's defense held ASU's offense to 2 field goals and 1 touchdown. That's not a good sign. Panel, your overall thoughts on the Arizona State Sun Devils in the Coliseum on Saturday night. Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're terrible. I mean, it's not just that they lost a lot of their best players over the offseason and that their coach was fired, but I mean, I think they are right now, they're sort of in the position that USC was last year, the second half of the year, when things are awful. Everybody knows they're awful. Nobody thinks they can get better. And they're going to start quitting soon, is my guess. I mean, they're really, really bad. Other than Colorado, probably the worst team in the conference. So I don't expect that. I don't expect that coming into the Coliseum, they're going to offer much resistance.
All right, let's move on. Mark, your thoughts on the ASU game?
Yeah, I echo exactly what Chris said. I mean, the fact that we're even talking about this game, we have to because USC's playing in it. Other than that, this game should be over by halftime. The backups need to be playing a lot in the second half. The defense, again, you have a quarterback that left Florida because he turned the ball over a lot. I anticipate USC continuing their opportunistic ways and creating at least 2 more turnovers in this game. Again, should be over by halftime.
Kevin?
Yeah, I just never believe in easy games, but this one should be a game where there shouldn't be a question. Halftime, you know, there should be a pretty good amount of points on the board, you know, for the home team. So, you know, that said, you know, never let the other guy get up. I got to tell you, that's just, you know, how it is. Put your foot in the back of his neck and never let him up. So do that to Arizona State. Make sure it's over at halftime so we don't have to, we can pull some guys off the field and not risk injuries.
All right, I'm going to just a couple of comments. The Trojans are averaging 42.25 points per game. Arizona State has allowed 22.25 points per game, so that's not a good sign. ASU's offense averages 22.75 points per game. Trojans are allowing 18.25 points per game. All the statistics point out that it should be, I don't want to say there's no really easy wins, but it should be a smooth win. I am a little surprised at the point forecast of 12.5 point favorites. I thought it'd be a little bit more.
Oh, it is more. It's 20. It's
23 and a half, something like that.
Okay.
That's what I saw. Chris, is that what you saw?
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
Okay.
All right. So it's changed, obviously, since I first got the spread. I couldn't believe it when it said 12.5, but I'm glad to see they corrected it. The reality is the program's a disaster, and the NCAA hasn't even lowered the boom on the COVID recruiting violations. You know, we don't know if SC is going to have a letdown against the Sun Devils, but I don't think that's going to happen. The intriguing question to me is how many fans will show up for another 7:30 p.m. kickoff, and was the win at Oregon State an injection of enthusiasm to go to the Coliseum, or was the win and perhaps the way the team played Caleb Williams take some of the edge off the hyperbole machine? Will fans come to the Coliseum, or would they rather stay home and watch the game on ESPN? So we're going to find that out. So with that, let's move on to halftime. Part 2 question, panel. Do you think that the Trojans offensive coordinator Lincoln Riley was outcoached by Oregon State defensive coordinator Trent Bray? And do you think that Caleb Williams' performance against Oregon State has severely hurt his chances of winning the Heisman Trophy? Kevin, let's start off with the first question. Do you think that the Trojans offensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley, was outcoached by Oregon State defensive coordinator Trent Bray?
I'd have to say yes. The offense wasn't ready for what they saw on defense, and they were, held to, well below their average. Even though some of those were against cupcake teams like Rice, but nonetheless, the team wasn't ready for what they saw, and we couldn't get plays in, and there was a lot of issues there that needed to be cleaned up, as some of our former coaches used to say all the time. It used to irritate the bejeebers out of me. But in this case, it's factually accurate. We need to do better. Sometimes, look, quit getting cute with play calling. Just go out there, call a play, run it. Just run it. And most likely something good will happen with the kind of people the personnel that we have.
Chris, did Riley get outcoached by Bray?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think Riley would admit it too. You're talking about a USC offense that has way too much talent to have 10 points 58 and a half minutes into that game. And the reality is the defense, time and again, kept that game from getting out of hand when Riley's offense just couldn't get it done. I think that Riley should have gone with some tempo last night or Saturday night. I know it's hard to do that when you're not getting first downs, but I think they needed to get on the ball quick and snap it quick. That's not Riley's style. He doesn't huddle, but he likes to see what the defense is doing, communicate with his quarterback, and try to get the absolute best play in. I think that was a problem. They were killing us with their late movement, and Caleb Williams is making split-second decisions before the snap. I thought it was a nightmare. He should have gotten on the ball quick, simplified the offense, and let USC's athletes make plays. There are way too many guys in Cardinal and Gold on that side of the ball to not have any success. It was ugly.
Mark, how ugly was it?
I thought the first quarter it was deplorable. I mean, they used all their timeouts. So after that, was he out coached? No.
Hey, we did have 100 yards rushing at the end of the first quarter, by the way.
Well, how much of that came on the very first play of the game?
35.
It was 36-yard run.
Again, had they stuck with the run game, which I alluded to earlier, I thought the offense would have been okay. But they, whether they were cute or trying to mix it up, I don't know. I thought after the first quarter, I don't think he was out coached. I think the team just wasn't able to execute. Whether their confidence was shook or go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but respectfully, he got out coached. They weren't ready for that defense, not even close.
Conversely,
you call it out coach.
Conversely, did Alex Grinch out Jonathan Smith?
Yeah, maybe
I
so.
Mean,
I think he probably did.
Probably two great defensive performances against head
coaches.
coaches.
Credit to the guys on the field at some point, right?
As far as what?
At a certain point, players have to execute, and whether we can agree and disagree on when a coach is being outcoached, schemed. I think after the first.
Hey, time out here. Oregon State defense shut down our offense. It was not even close. Shut it down. That's coaching.
How much of that was on Caleb's shoulders, though, Kevin? I mean,
no, you can't do that. You can't put all that on Caleb's shoulders. I'm sorry. Unfair.
Right.
The Oregon State ran a cover 7 with a 2-high.
I would love to make a
safety.
point without being interrupted.
Do what you got to do. Go for it, brother.
Okay. Well, I will try and do my best.
Go for it, brother. Talk. Say something.
So, again, I agree in the first quarter, they weren't prepared. After that, you saw what you needed to see. They made adjustments. The second half, timeouts weren't an issue. At a certain point, players have to play. They have to execute. 44% completion rate isn't on the coaching. You got to put some of it on the players. That's part of the point I was trying to make. Go ahead.
Part of the point I was trying to make is sometimes you got to throw the right kind of patterns that give the quarterback a chance.
You can't see whether the guys are running the right patterns. Was Caleb trying to go big instead of taking an easy throw?
Right, because of some crown in the middle of the field? Like, really, are you going to do that?
Again, you're not listening. Was he trying to go big every time? Or was he not taking the guys who are open underneath?
With that quality of receiver group against basically a zone defense, we should have
44% completion rate.
We should have torn them up.
I'm not disputing that.
That sounds like
at a certain point, players got to execute. 44% throwing the ball isn't executing. And I'm not even talking about the crown on the field right now. It has nothing to do with my argument.
So, but what is your argument?
I've said it twice. I'll just try to say it again.
Maybe I'm slow. Sorry.
Yeah, no. After the first quarter, I don't think he was outcoached. I think the players just were having a hard time executing.
Okay, well, I think this is where I step in. Yeah, he was outcoached. Lincoln Riley was outcoached. I think the whole Corvallis environment got to Riley. I'll tell you why. Because in the post-game show, body language talks a lot. And when Riley started talking about that crowd, it was almost like he was reliving a situation that even he got into. Calling those 2 early timeouts shook up his team a bit, even though maybe they should have been called, but it sent a message. Remember, John Wooden used to always say, never call a timeout in particular situations because it sends a bad message to your team. If this had been Clay Helton calling these timeouts early in the first quarter, people would be having an absolute meltdown. I don't think that Lincoln Riley adjusted to a lot of things that we kind of thought he might against Trent Bray. They could have run some crossing patterns, short cross, no fly sweeps. I've said this before, no misdirection, no screen passes, anything to get Trent Gray's defense confused itself. I think that I agree also with Mark on this point. At some point, the players are responsible. Okay, it's up to Lincoln Riley, it's up to Caleb Williams to try to recompose himself and pay attention to executing the offense. I as a coach for 27 years on a varsity level, I know the first person that generally gets blamed is the coach. And I used to tell all the parents, well, why don't you come watch us practice, see what your kid is learning, and see if he does it in the game, and then have at it. But I think it's one of those things where in the end, Riley learned something. I think Caleb Williams learned something. But I'll give Alex Grench credit too. I think he really took it to Oregon State and Jonathan Smith. So it was a good day for defensive coordinators. Now let's move on to, do you think that Caleb Williams' performance against Oregon State has severely hurt his chances of winning the Heisman Trophy? Kevin, did it hurt his chances?
Yeah, it did. But I got to tell you, this is early in the year for Heisman discussions. There hasn't been a lot of Heisman talk, frankly, anyway. So, it's one of those in the margin kinds of answers. Like, what really hurt Heisman chances is Pac-12 network playing it, in the middle of midnight, and fair amount of folks that have an impact on how Heisman votes are cast weren't watching the game, which was a great game to watch, by the way.
Chris, did it hurt Williams' chances for the Heisman?
No. Bad statistical games early in the season aren't going to hurt your Heisman chances. He has to put up big numbers over the course of the year. He has to do so in the big games. He needs to light it up against Utah. He needs to light it up against Notre Dame. He needs to, and USC has to win. If USC goes 12-0, Caleb Williams is going to be in the top 3 of the Heisman voting. So it's losses that hurt, not bad statistical moments. The question is whether or not he's going to have a repeat of that. Because if he has a repeat of that, especially against a good team, then he's going to get the loss. And the losses do hurt. more than one loss, and he's toast.
You agree with that, Marc Kulkin?
To an extent, if we want to focus on how poorly he played, yeah, it definitely hurts his chances. But you look at the last drive, and he turned it into a Heisman moment. He got a little bit of a nudge from Nylon and Monheim and the offensive line. But then, very few quarterbacks are going to attempt, let alone complete that throw that he made. Left hash mark, right corner, front end zone. And he put it on a rope. That's a Heisman moment. So if that's all anybody saw because they don't get the Pac-12 network, that's the highlight that ESPN showed. That's the highlight that Fox, the Fox network showed. So I don't necessarily think it hurt his Heisman chances. But again, what you guys are talking about, what Chris just said, you need to perform in the big games. And you've got Utah, Notre Dame, and UCLA still coming up.
And I agree. I think it didn't help his chances, but minor because it was on the Pac-12. Obviously, the big highlight is a great player that was not having a great game, but played great when it counted. And that takes into consideration why he's still in the Heisman Trophy race. He does have to play well, though, in the 3 games that you guys mentioned. So with that, let's, before we begin the second half, reminder that you're watching or listening to WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle. This week's WeAreSC panelists include Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, Kevin Bruce. I'm your moderator, Greg Katz. We also encourage you, check out the WeAreSC.com website as part of the On3 network. Become a subscriber to the best coverage of USC football, recruiting, and overall coverage of Trojans athletics. You can also, by the way, read all of us if you like what you're watching now on your favorite social media platform. And as a reminder, WeAreSC.com is currently offering a 1-week free trial of WeAreSC.com, which includes breaking stories, analysis, recruiting, and data for USC football, basketball, and the balance of USC athletics. So with that, second half kickoff, you know what time it is. I know what time it is. It's time for Musings with Arledge, with Chris Arledge. A reminder, any comments or opinions expressed by Chris Arledge are solely those of his own, not in any shape or form a reflection or of opinions of WeAreSC.com or the On3 network. Any republication, rebroadcast, use, or other descriptions of Musings with Arledge without the express written consent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Central Intelligence Agency is strictly prohibited. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we bring to you the very popular Inside the Trojans Huddle version of Chris Arledge's Musings with Arledge. Go for it, Chris.
Thank you, Greg. I noticed that we've started to pick up some viewers from opposing teams on our show. And so I wanted to take a moment just to say a word to fans from other teams who are coming to watch us. First of all, welcome. We're happy to have you. We really are. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your comments after the show. We hope you keep coming back. But second, I want to talk about some of your comments on YouTube because I want to explain things from our perspective. Because look, are we going to say some things that upset you? Probably. I hope so. If we're doing our jobs, we will. Part of this is just because of what fans are like. Fans of every team. Fans love their team. That's the whole point. But other people don't love your team, not like you do. It's like when you show your coworkers videos of your kids doing things that you think are adorable. If your coworkers are polite, they act like they also think the videos are amazing. They don't, because they know deep down inside, though they may try to hide it, that there's nothing special about your kids. They're not nearly as cute or interesting or clever as you think they are. And that's okay. Just don't be surprised when other people don't see your piano-playing 8-year-old as the next Mozart. Now, why do I bring this up? Because fans of other teams, nobody outside of your fan base thinks your team is all that cute or special either. I'm going to pick on Oregon State fans just for a second, because they're the ones we heard from most recently. And I want to start, Pumpkin Crew, by saying that I actually respect Oregon State fans a great deal. Root for that program over the long haul and still care deserves our respect. It's easy to be an Ohio State fan, but a fan of a team that dresses up in pumpkin orange, has that silly beaver mascot, and has more losing seasons than winning seasons, if you can stay emotionally committed to that, you're a superhero of fandom. Oregon State fans are the best. I love you guys. USC fans, we're terrible compared to you. Ever since Pete Carroll left, we spent all of our time complaining about how awful things are. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else because I've been leading that charge. Now, during that time period, Oregon State has gone 55-91 with one top 25 finish and a single bowl win, the Hawaii Bowl, which sounds like something you'd get at Jamba Juice with pineapple chunks on top, not a football game. Now, USC, going through one of its worst stretches ever during that same time period, was 99-54 with a Rose Bowl win and 6 top 25 finishes. I'm not bragging. That's terrible. We're still furious about it. Now, why do I bring this up? I want to say this respectfully, Oregon State fans, because I like you guys. I really do. But your program sucks. I don't mean you're a bad team. You're not a bad team. Jonathan Smith has put together a good football team that gave our guys all they could handle the other night. But your program still sucks because it takes an unbelievable coaching job and significant strokes of luck just to get to 9 wins. And you'll still never see a Rose Bowl. I mean, literally, you'll never see one. Even if you bought a ticket, they probably wouldn't let you in. I honestly think the workers at the gate would turn Oregon State fans away. You guys don't belong here. The Hawaii Bowl was 6 days ago. Football season's been over for you guys for a long time. And that's why some of your complaints are silly. You complain that this panel doesn't really know Oregon State football. Of course not. That's your team. You're going to know those players far better than any of us ever could. And you'll overrate them because all fan bases overrate their team. They think their recruits are better than that they are. They think their traditions are better than they are. And they think their team is more righteous and upstanding than they are. UCLA still thinks, despite all the evidence, that they underachieve because their academic standards are so high. Seriously, the Bruins think that. Now, in reality, half their roster probably can't spell Bruins. And the real reason they're bad is because they just don't care that much. Their coach is too lazy to recruit. Their attendance is about 60% of St. John Bosco's. And their uniforms are too feminine for Dancing with the Stars. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. They're delusional, but that's what fans are. So that's why you shouldn't get all worked up at this panel when we predict USC to beat Oregon State. Of course we're going to predict that. We're USC fans, and you're Oregon State, which means if we predict USC to win every single year, we will be right at least 80% of the time. And we know playing in Corvallis is a challenge. Even our best teams have struggled up there. And it certainly didn't help that you surrounded that field with more speakers than the average rave. I think Caleb Williams struggled because he was afraid he might get roofied in that place. A completely Bush League tactic, by the way, but whatever. What's done is done. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm trying to reach an understanding with you guys because, like I said, I like you. So don't get worked up with members of this panel because you know Oregon State's roster better than we do. Of course you do. Again, we're USC fans, and you're Oregon State. That's like somebody from Kazakhstan complaining that a lot of Kazakhstanis know English and know who the U.S. president is, but Americans know nothing about Kazakhstan or its language. Of course we don't. We don't have to. We Americans will know a little bit about the bigger countries around the world. We know who's running Russia. We know the Queen of England died. So we know some stuff. We just don't know about Kazakhstan because why would we? So USC fans, we know some stuff about Notre Dame and Ohio State and Alabama, but we don't spend a ton of time studying up on a team that wins one bowl game a decade and it happens to be the Hawaii Bowl. We don't. Get angry if you must. The fact that I like you guys, and I do, actually says something itself. You think I like Ohio State, Alabama, Oklahoma? Nope. I hate every single one of them. I only wish them the worst. If the bubonic plague makes its return, I hope it breaks out in Tuscaloosa. That's what we think about those other programs. I like you guys because you don't win enough to make me hate you. So don't get worked up when a member of this panel says that Jonathan Smith might be interested in the UCLA job. Of course he'd be interested. Look, Jonathan Smith would have crawled over broken glass to take the USC job. You want to tell yourself otherwise, but deep down you know it's true. Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for the USC job. Smith would have given one of his kidneys to take this job. If USC told Jonathan Smith he could have the USC job, but he'd need to leave his family sealed in a shipping container and never see any of them again, he would have been grabbing his welding goggles before even hanging up the phone. Now, obviously, the UCLA job isn't as good because they're not as good, but it still has a much higher ceiling than Oregon State. That's just the reality. Don't get upset with us when we tell you he might leave. Of course he's going to leave. He's too good of a coach not to. It's just a matter of when. Again, I like you guys. I want your team to do well. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I hope you guys beat Utah this week. You won't. Your team will be devastated from losing the biggest game of their lives last week, and they're going to struggle Saturday. But can you get Oregon, Washington? Absolutely you could. And I hope you do. I'm rooting for you guys. How can I not root for the little orange engine that could? So good luck. And I don't mean to just pick on you guys. You're just the ones we interacted with most recently. I could give a similar speech for most Pac-12 fans. I just hope I don't have to. So Arizona State fans, in case you're lurking out there, and assuming there still are Arizona State fans, don't make the same mistake the Oregon State fans made. Learn from them. Oregon State at least has a good football team this year, which is not something we can say about your Sun Devils. USC is going to beat the tar out of you guys. Unless you're delusional, you know that. Your program is in full meltdown mode. You're basically Chernobyl in the desert. Take your upcoming beating. Take your upcoming sanctions. Take your upcoming train wreck of a recruiting class. Take your antibiotics. We know what you guys are up to, or at least we hear the rumors. As for all the rest of you around the conference, enjoy the next 2 seasons. Enjoy your last opportunity or two to hate on USC. You're going to miss us when we're gone.
All right. Well, now that you've alienated the West Coast.
Not the first time or last time, Greg.
You can certainly bet on that, folks. But a great job as usual, which transitions us into the fourth quarter and the traditional lighting of the Chris Arledge Coliseum torch. There we go. And a reminder, you can watch Inside the Trojans Huddle every Tuesday, either directly on WeAreSC.com's website or on YouTube or any of the other social platforms that we appear on. We are working, by the way, for some to try to get more podcast outlets, which I think is a good thing for all of us. So look, as we enter the fourth quarter, you know what time it is. It's time for week 5 of predictions from the panel on this week's Pac-12 Conference. So we'll begin with Friday night. We've got a Friday night game, September 30th. Number 15, Washington, 4-0. Pac-12, 1-0 at UCLA, which is 4-0. 1-0 in the Pac-12, 7:30 p.m. Kickoff on ESPN. Washington is favored by 3 points. Mark, who are you picking?
Woof. Go Husky.
All right, a dog fan.
I'm impressed with what Kalen DeBoer's done with that program up there. And I have not seen anything from UCLA that's going to make me go 8 clap. So, yeah, I've got Washington covering this.
All right, you have a special affinity for Washington. Who's going to win the ball game?
You say I have a special affinity for Washington?
No, Kevin.
Oh, Kevin.
Oh, okay. Well, that's because my dad went to University of Washington, played football and basketball. He's a better athlete than I was. Yeah, look, anybody beats UCLA is my friend, so I'm going to pick Washington.
All right.
I love that answer.
The purple crowd gets a vote from the captain. All right, Chris, what do you think? Washington or UCLA?
I mean, I don't know if Washington can handle the hostile environment of the Rose Bowl these days. I mean, 90,000 UCLA fans going crazy. I just see lots of false starts and confusion. But if they can get over that, they probably beat the Bruins. UCLA can score some points if they get their act together, and they could make it interesting. And it would be very like UCLA to go out and win this game and then lose their next 3. So it wouldn't shock me if the Bruins won. I'm going to pick Washington, but I think it's going to be a one-score game.
I tell you, I think the longer that the game goes, the more it's going to favor UCLA. Washington favored by 3. I'm not sold completely on UCLA's defense. So I'm still, as much as it revolts me to say so, I'm going to pick UCLA. If Washington does win this one, then I'd have to say that what a great job by DeBoer as a coach. All right, let's move on. Saturday, October 1st, Oregon State 3-1, Pac-12 0-1 at number 12, Utah 3-1, 1-0 in the Pac-12. 11 a.m. kickoff on the dreaded Pac-12 network. Utah is favored by 11 points. Mark, who's taking this one?
Yeah, I don't know if Oregon State's going to recover from those body blows and have to go take some more body blows. I got Utah. Even without Brent Kuithe, or however you pronounce their great tight end's last name.
Yeah. Kev?
Yeah, I have to agree with Mark on that. There's just not enough gas left in the tank at Oregon State, especially after Chris just got through with them. So, they're Utah, tough place, tough team to play against. They don't make many mistakes, and they have a pretty good toolkit. So, might end up being a pretty entertaining game if you like to see, a lot of blood and guts. So that'd be kind of interesting.
Now, Oregon State did beat Utah last year, if I remember correctly, but that was in Corvallis.
Yeah, and also the other guys know that too. But yeah, well, they might do it again.
You are correct.
Chris, who's going to win, Oregon State or Utah?
Utah's going to win. Oregon State could beat Utah on a neutral field if things broke right for them, but it's not a neutral field, and Oregon State is going to have a very difficult time getting off the mat after what happened to them Saturday. So I think Utah wins the game. I think they probably win it handily. The only way I see Oregon State winning is if Utah just puts the ball on the carpet way too much, and I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I think Utah's on a mission. I think after that first game loss at Florida, it kind of rattled their cage a little bit, and they've been quietly coming back more and more. I think that they're the most complete team in the conference, in my opinion, and I think that they'll dispose of Oregon State. This is a gut check for Oregon State, though, to see if they have the ability to bounce back after a tough loss. All right, let's go. Cal 3-1, Pac-12 1-0 at Washington State 3-1, Pac-12 0-1, 2:30 p.m. on the Pac-12 network. Washington State favored by 4 points. Mark, who you picking?
Yeah, I can't see Wazoo cooking it 2 weeks in a row at home. I'm still trying to figure out how they freaking lost that game to Oregon. Talk about. Anyways, Washington State. Cal, look, you stop Jaden Knott, and I think you're going to stop that offense. And again, I don't see Wazoo doing what they did 2 weeks in a row at home. They're a good team.
Kevin, who's going to win? The Bears or the Cougars?
Cougs.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I think Wazoo wins it also, although they also had to get up off the mat. I mean, that would have been a gigantic win for them, and they had it won and just gave it away. I could see them coming over with a little bit of a hangover. But I still think they're good enough playing at home, and I think that quarterback of theirs is athletic enough to run around and make some plays for them. That I'm going to pick Wazoo, but I think it's going to be close.
I like Washington State. I think some teams would be devastated by this. I think that Washington State's going to be motivated for it. They know the following week they're going to be at SC, where they can really have a full recovery if they could upset the Trojans. I still wonder about Cal offense a little bit. And a game at Washington State, if they get good fan backing at Martin Stadium, I like Washington State in this one. Colorado 0-4, Pac-12 0-1. This game is going to be on the Pac-12 network against, they're at Arizona, which is 2-2, 0-1 in the Pac-12. That's 6:30 p.m. kickoff. Arizona's favored by 18 points. Mark, who do you see?
So Colorado is now 0-5, and who do they play the week after?
You got me. The week after?
Moving forward. They're not going to win.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's not much there. Frankly, there's not a lot of interest either. So there you go.
All right, Chris.
How bad do you have to be an 18-point dog to Arizona? Jeez, that's terrible. I don't want to talk about this game. Of course, Colorado's going to lose. They shouldn't play. They should just disband the program right now. Like literally tonight, they should just send everybody home.
And I think Arizona is going to win as well. So let's move on because I think this game really is unappealing. Stanford 1-2 at Pac-12, 0-2 at number 13 Oregon, 3-1 Pac-12, 1-0 8 p.m. FS1 is the television network. Oregon is favored by 16 points. Mark, you take those points?
Yeah, Stanford doesn't know how to hold on to the ball. They turn the ball over at least twice a game. You do that at Oregon, but yeah, Stanford's not as good as we were hoping they would be this year.
Kevin?
Yeah, Oregon's gonna spank them. It's gonna be ugly.
How ugly, Chris?
Oh, it's gonna be bad. They'll cover the 16, I think. Stanford's exactly what I thought they'd be this year. That program has fallen off significantly over the last 5 years, and they're not coming back. Oregon big, sadly.
I agree. Hint of sarcasm. Oregon's going to rip them. Stanford is in trouble. Let's put it that way. And I don't think Shaw will get fired. He's got a lot of work to do. All right, the big main event. ASU 3 Pac-12 1 at number 6 USC 4-0 Pac-12 2-0 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. USC is favored by, well, we originally said 12.5, but you've informed me that it's 23 now. So Mark, what's your call?
Yeah, Lincoln Riley is going to be so upset that he got out coached last week. He's going to come back with a vengeance, and the offense is going to be clicking. Again, this game should be over by halftime. I have zero doubt that they are going to look a lot better on offense this week.
Kevin, will you be staying up for the second half on this one?
Sure, I always do. I do.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm hardwired. So there you go.
So you're doing the Trojans.
There you go.
Chris?
Yeah, this is an easy win, guys. That especially with how the offense played last week and how badly those guys want to put on a show, it's gonna be a beatdown.
I think it's going to be very difficult. I think USC will come out differently in the first quarter. And I don't think they're going to let the foot pedal to the metal, as they say. I think it's going to be a rout. The only negative thing about this game is the 7:30 p.m. kickoff. All right. And now, of course, our weekly Georgia Southern prediction presented by the unofficial Clay Helton fan club last Saturday evening. Helton and Georgia Southern Eagles beat mighty Ball State 34-23 this Saturday. Georgia Southern at 3-1 travels to play the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, which are 4-0, I might add, in Conway, South Carolina. Georgia Southern's a 10-point underdog. The game will be televised on ESPN Plus, and the game figures to be sold out at 20,000 seat Brooks Stadium. Mark, who's your pick?
Oh, you got to go with the Clears on this one.
You're going with the Clares.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, I love that stadium. I'm not a fan of colored turf, but it works for them because they are right on the water. It works.
It works for you. All right, Kevin, what's going to happen is Coach Helton going to be ambushed by the Clares?
No, he's going to outcoach him.
All right. Christopher?
This is right about the time of the season when Clay Helton's got his fans' hopes up and he can now dash them. So, yeah, it's going to be bad. Lots of turnovers, lots of penalties, lots of confused looks on the sideline.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is the point of the season when there's the false hope. We've seen it before. The Coastal Carolina will be 5-0 after Saturday's game. And I tell you what, we'll all be running for ESPN Plus on this one, won't we? Of course we will. All right. Overtime. It's time to answer some viewer questions and for panel answers in a free-for-all format. Folks, if you'd like to submit a question that we can answer or give you our opinions, just go to either the Gary P or WeAreSC members message boards at WeAreSC.com. From there, you'll see the topic thread regarding questions for Inside the Trojans Huddle. Some of these will be repeat questions. We appreciate all a lot of questions now, and obviously we can't get them all in, but if some of them are worthy to go to the following week, we're going to do that. So we're going to start off with from Eliminator 207 from Valencia, California. Why do we have so much trouble getting the play called and snapped with more than 1 or 2 seconds to spare? Losing timeouts early in a half is reminiscent of the Helton headlights days. Comments, panel?
I've already said what I had to say on this. I think Riley was trying to make sure the play call was too perfect, and he wanted to wait too long and figure out what was going on. And he needed to simplify and run quick.
Anybody want to chime in on this one?
No, we kind of beat this one up a little bit, and look, it's just every play is designed to go for a touchdown. So pick one and run it.
All right, let's move on to question 2 from Trojans 2021 from West Palm Beach, Florida. I think this was the perfect game at the perfect time. The Caleb and the passing game was terrible, but running the ball and playing defense travels to any road, and that got them the win. At the same time, you got 2 home games for Caleb to get his confidence back before Utah and the defense to keep building off what they did. Are you more or less confident that the Trojans can run the table after that game? All right. I assume he's talking about the Utah game, or is he talking about the win after Oregon State?
I think he's talking about how Oregon State impacts our views.
Okay, so what do you think?
Look, every championship team has a game like that that's ugly, and they find a way to gut it out, even if they probably shouldn't. So winning that way does not make me think that USC can't do it. I'll say this, though. Running the table is really hard. And that's why it happens so rarely. So I still think it's unlikely that USC does that. But the fact that the defense is showing signs of life gives us at least a little bit of hope. And frankly, if they get past Utah, they're probably going to do it.
Yeah, the ball bounces funny sometimes, and so far the ball has been bouncing USC's way. We've talked about the fumble at the 1 yard line goal, the goal line where Bobby Haskin falls on it. Literally probably saves the game. You're not going to get 4 takeaways every game, but as long as the defense continues to play the way they are, to Chris's point, winning ugly is still a win.
I think it's going to be very challenging. The second schedule is very, very challenging, starting with Utah, with UCLA and Notre Dame. But capable of winning every game. If they get over the Utah game, then it's going to get really interesting. Let's just put it that way. They could have as good a shot as anybody running the table. So it's going to be, shall we say, all around, revolves around Utah. What happens with Utah will set the table on running the table. All right, question 3 from Rob in Santa Clara, California. Question. Sean Cody mentioned a few times the fact that the Beavers had figured out head coach Lincoln Riley's bread and butter run play, his GT counter. Assuming the rest of the pack follows, how does HCLR head coach Lincoln Riley adjust? What does he do?
I don't think it was figured out. I alluded to it earlier. The offensive line is dealing with some injuries, and that affected play calling. I don't think you saw that play ran very often during the game.
I will say that I think that there's a lot more in the playbook we haven't seen. I still keep waiting to see the fly sweep to round. We haven't seen that at all. I think we haven't seen screen draws or other things that he could do. I assume he can do it. but the GT counter is his bread and butter play. And generally speaking, even if you know it's coming, you sometimes can't stop it. So it'll be interesting to see what he does to balance out. We haven't seen any reverses, just as a or misdirection. In a lot of
one against Rice, I think.
Yeah. Question 4 from Scott from Gilbert, Arizona. Panel, with Caleb seemingly struggling last night on the road, do you feel that Riley should have lit on the running game more? Also, why didn't we put Jordan Addison in motion early to get he and Caleb an easy completion and on the same page? Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Some rollout, that was zone, so you can run, you have the luxury of running some patterns that should be easy completions. Maybe not, they're not necessarily long ones, they're not vertical. And we didn't see a lot of that. Okay, so be it. We saw good, and they're also audibling to the run plays because of the way Oregon State was, playing the box. The numbers were there for run, so, and they just stayed with it. It turned out okay, but boy, I wouldn't dial that one up every week.
All right, question from Doug from Corona, California. Hi, gents. Just wondering what is going on with Corey Foreman. Looks like he's coasting. I was hoping to see him have a breakout. Do you have any answers about him? I will start off by saying my girlfriend asked the same question. Is he playing? And I had to actually go and check the participation sheet, and he was there. He was suited up. He did not play. At least that's what the participation chart said. So what is going on? Comments?
Well, it's a comment or observation I've had too. This kid is lost in space right now, and he's not playing football. We need him to play football. It would be nice if he could play football. He right now he's not, and that's between the ears, and it's just not working. So my guess is he goes to portal pretty quickly.
Do you both, Mark, agree with that?
I'm not going to jump on the portal train quite yet. I know where you're coming from, Kevin, because that's been talked about behind the scenes amongst people. I think right now they found out that they can go a little bit bigger with that rush in, and Solomon Byrd is bigger than Corey Foreman as far as thickness. He holds up better against the run, and he's also able to get penetration in the backfield. So until Corey can start producing, he's not going to see any playing time. When Solomon wasn't in, they were moving Tooley out there, or I think they even put Dejon Benton out there on a couple of occasions. So
they did, and he did well from that position.
And that was what I was saying. They found something that works up front, and it's bigger, especially against that Oregon State offensive line that Chris mentioned is pretty good. So that's all I'll say on that.
I mean, I hate talking about Corey Foreman every week. I know with the way his recruitment went that it's something everybody wants to talk about. The reality is that the coaches are playing their best guys, and Corey Foreman's not one of them. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if his talent was overrated, if his mind is not there, if he has to develop pass rush moves that he doesn't. I don't know. I don't get to see him in practice. All I know is in a game, he does not make a difference. It doesn't. So you can't play him.
All right. From Phil in East LA, it appears that USC football is on the right track to return to glory. Do you or the panel think that Lynn Swann or Pat Hayden will be a welcome sight on the sidelines or anywhere else? I sure hope so. Comment?
I think over time, anything's possible.
There you go.
Well, throw Reggie Bush in there too while you're at it.
Well, that's already in the works. I can tell you that for a fact.
Okay, well, good to know.
Let me just, and then Kevin, I'll let you go. What are you telling us? It's already.
No, they're already. Look, you can see it happening behind the scenes. You got the Wendy's. You got Wendy's already doing it subliminally with their commercials. Mike Bone has already said we're working on getting Reggie Bush's Heisman back. They're working on it. I mean,
yeah. When Bone made that comment at Salute to Troy, that told me all I need to know.
Yeah.
It's clear he doesn't say that unless he feels pretty good something's going to happen on that front.
Watch the
Wendy's
Wendy's commercials.
That'll be so disappointing for you, Greg, that he'll have his Heisman Trophy back. Maybe you can boycott going into Heritage Hall after that.
That's going to be one heck of a show.
For the pot, don't you, Arledge?
Yeah, I think part of the question included Pat Hayden and Lynn Swan as well, right?
We'll say this: Lynn Swan or Pat Hayden will not be leading the Trojans as tunnel runners or on the sidelines anytime soon. And as far as Reggie Bush goes, hey, if they're going to give him back his Heisman Trophy, good for them. I still would like to send an apology and leave it at that. Let's move on to a couple more, then we're done. Let's go with this one. From Boulder to Birmingham in Santa Clarita, California. Is Chris Arledge still holding to his earlier prediction that UCLA will beat Utah when they beat in a few weeks?
Hey, don't rush me on that, Boulder. We have that pick next week, and I'll give you my pick next week. I will say this, though. I like it that Utah has Oregon State and UCLA before the USC game. That's exactly what I want. I want two difficult games before they get the Trojans.
All right. You got the response. And finally, we're going to end up with this one from IH8ND, which I think comes out to I Hate Notre Dame. HCLR, head coach Lincoln Riley, obviously has no problem playing true freshmen, example, Rayleigh Brown, in addition to Caleb and Mario at OU last year. But the current secondary has a lot of seniority on DJ1. I assume that they're talking about Damani Jackson. He's had some injury concerns with his knee, but it would sure be fun to see the Cal State 100-meter high school champion return some punts and kickoffs. I guess the question is, are we going to see more of Damani? We saw some of him. I thought it was encouraging that he actually played in the game. Thoughts?
Well, I think we're probably going to see more of him as the year goes on. It looked like he wasn't lost out there, and he's immensely talented. So I think he'll continue to play. As for punts and kickoff returns, I don't think it matters who we have a kickoff return. They're not going anywhere. And punt return, I'm less interested in having a flashy freshman back there than I'm having a guy who catch the ball.
Yeah, I thought Damani, in the few plays that he got in on defense, his physicality flashed. He wasn't afraid to stick his nose in there and on the tackle. And I actually think he would help on kickoff return. I don't want to stick him back on punt return. Kickoff return, I think he would be able to see the field just enough that he can, with his speed, decide, hey, I can get to that side and beat the defense.
All right. And with a reminder again, if you have any questions or comments for our panel, go to either of the WeAreSC message boards to click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle viewer or listener questions. So that will do it for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. We sure hope you enjoyed it. We love having you with us. A reminder that next Tuesday we'll review the Arizona State game as well as preview the Washington State game, as well as our usual comments or relevant USC and college football topics, and of course give you our weekly Pac-12 game predictions. So until then, a big thank you to this week's panel of Marc Kulkin, Chris Arledge, and Kevin Bruce, and a special big thank you to all of you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Until next Tuesday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, reminding you all to fight on, everybody.